Okay, cool. So, like, obviously, it's club at the high school, and then so we compete. You learn a lot of public speaking. Like, a lot of people are scared to join because they're like, "Oh, I'm not the best public speaker," but you get a lot better, and then you also it helps you learn about so much. Whether you do speech or debate or even Congress, you'll always debate. You're always like talking about different concepts, and you learn a lot, and you read a lot, and it just helps you with many life skills. Also, the teacher who comes to all the tournaments always brings donut holes, so that's a nice plus. And also, like Yash, it's great for having a group of friends when you're coming up to the high school and already knowing high schoolers, because you'll have high schoolers coming down to the middle school twice a week, so you already know people coming up to the high school, which is really nice. So all of our tournaments are on Saturdays. So the day tournaments, which is where the middle schoolers can compete, are 7:30 to 5-ish. And Mr. Matuziak brings donut holes to all of these. They're fun. But then at the high school, the really fun ones are the travel ones, where we either leave Friday end of the day, or for two of the tournaments, which are really big, we leave in the middle of the day. And so we mostly go to Ohio, and for one of them we go to Erie. And it's a lot of fun. You get to come close with the team. We go up, and normally it's just two vans. Each can seat like 11 people. It's fun. You get to know the coaches better. You get some free food. I think normally dinner the Friday night and dinner the Saturday night are paid for. I don't know. And then, so this year, traveling and stuff is still up in the air, but things are going to probably be online, so it'll be fun. And the majority of the season is January to February. And another important thing is, even if like, say like I'm somebody, they do like robotics, and say for that, it's really involved from September to January, you'll find coming into the season in February. So it's compete as much as you want. There's a minimum club requirement of doing like one event a year, but that's fine because like you're going to end up doing that in some way. So yeah. So who are the adults that help us out? So Mr. Matuziak is the teacher sponsor. This picture is of him. He's a teacher at the high school, and he's the one that will organize all the logistical stuff. So if you're bringing forms or if you have any questions during the day, he can help you. He also knows a lot about speech and debate. Like he's coached and done it since he's been in high school. Mr. Wilson and Mrs. Taylor are not teachers from our school. They are people who come in and help us. Mr. Wilson is the debate coach. He comes in once a week, and Mrs. Taylor comes in twice a week. She's the speech coach. At the high school, we have practices twice a week, Tuesdays and Thursdays. Middle school, we also have practices Tuesday and Thursdays. Mr. Wilson, Mrs. Taylor, and Mr. Matuziak don't come down to the middle school, but you'll see them at tournaments and stuff, and they'll be able to help you out then. Actually, wait, I think Mr. Wilson did come down a couple of times to the middle school, so it'll depend. And then the middle school sponsor this year is Mrs. Skiles. I think she's a 7th grade history teacher, not entirely sure, but she's going to be the one whose room we're meeting in. She's going to help us coordinate practices for the middle school. And then for the camp, normally this is when we would introduce everybody, but you can't really. So Goomba and Ian are doing PF. Jackson and Rajiv are going to be doing LD. I also do LD, but I'll be mainly floating around organizing stuff. And then speech, we have Hannah and Suparna, who I didn't put on there. So yeah. And then speech versus debate. So the two, like, it's like they're very different, and some aspects are very similar. So you do get a lot of the same benefits, but then there's different things. So in speech, it tends to be a lot more about how you say things than what you're saying. So it's a lot more focused on delivery. And then also with speech, it's the same content all year. You pick a speech and you use that throughout the whole year, and that doesn't change. So that's something could be fun. It's also for more like, if you're a more artistic, more interpretive type of person, that's what you tend to be. But debate is a lot more active thinking in the round, because in speech, you read your speech, and then you do that and you give your best interpretation of the piece, or you come up with the best impromptu speech. But in debate, it's a lot of critical thinking about, oh, how do I respond to that argument? What's the best way to convey this to the judge? So there's pros and cons to each of them. And so, yeah. So the debate events, so Lincoln Douglas, it's a one-on-one debate event about ethics of certain topics. And one of those rounds lasts about 45 minutes. And this is, it's like, and then public forum is a 2-on-2 debate. And those were relating to current events. So an example of like a current event was it was September, October, I believe the topic was the European Union should join the Belt and Road Initiative, which is something that China's doing right now. That's a more current event issue. But those rounds are also 45 minutes, but you do have the benefit of having a partner with you. The thing that's different with the topics is Lincoln Douglas is the topics change every 2 months. So for September, October, it's the same topic. For November, December, it's the same topic. January, February, March, April, and so on. Public forum, September, October, November, December have the same topics. But from then on out, in like the normal season, it's 1 month topic. So January has its own topic, February, March, and then March has its own topic, and then April. So yeah, and public forum is a lot less related to ethics. But also in Lincoln Douglas, you don't have to debate just ethics. It can be, you can like run, like there's a way you can do it so it's basically like similar to public forum. Also, for both debate events, you have to debate both sides. So we use something called Tab Room, which is a website which organizes everything. And you'll get a text or an email you'll see on the website, and it will tell you what side you're on and like who you're going into as your judge, all of that. Typically in those tournaments, they try to get you so that you have equal number of affirmative and negative rounds. Okay, and then speech. We're not doing the student congress because to practice it, we don't have enough students here. But so for the declamation, that's something for 9th and 10th graders only. So Daniel, sorry, you wouldn't be able to do it. It's memorize and deliver an existing speech that was already written, and it's around 10 minutes. Poetry and prose, those are reading, like prose is just anything that's written in like common words, and it's, yeah, or if you're reading poetry, sometimes they're together, sometimes they're different, it really depends. Those are also for 10 minutes. And then humorous and dramatic interp, or HI and DI. So these are, it's like poetry and prose are also, if you want to do HI or DI, but you think it's like too big of a jump, poetry and prose are a great step to that, because for those who select and memorize and perform a full 10-minute piece, and those tend to be more about how you're delivering it, how can you represent different characters. If you watch some videos of those, they're really funny, you can look it up. And then there's, oh, Hannah, wait. Oh, are you good?
Yeah, wait, no, could you, oh, sorry, I'm interrupting you, but could you open up another breakout room, because we're trying to split speech into 2.
Yeah.
For speech and interpretive.
Wait. Oh, wait, hold on. I think I just made you the host.
Oh, dope. Okay, wait. I don't think oh, wait, can I create another breakout room?
Oh, I don't think you can. Can you just let us finish here, and then we'll let you use the main room?
Okay, yeah, sounds good.
Okay, can you also give me back the host privileges so I can move through the stuff? Okay, thanks. Okay. And then impromptu, yeah, thanks.
Okay, so we'll go back to speech. Just let us know when you're done.
Okay, thanks. Okay, and then impromptu speaking. So this is a really fun one, and impromptu and extent. Gabby, do you need to move to LD? Oh, shoot. Okay, never mind. Okay, cool. So impromptu, you're given 3 topics, and then you can pick one, and then you make a 5 to 7. Oh, it's 5 minutes of prep for a 7-minute speech on the topic. So for those, it's a really fun event. Like I think everybody should do impromptu because it translates to everything. Whether you want to do speech, it helps work on your delivery. For debate, it helps work on your rebuttals and coming up with speeches quickly. Congress, same thing. It's just a really good event to practice public speaking and thinking on the fly. And then for extemporaneous, that's like impromptu to another level because it's more political issues, like will Trump get reelected in 2020, and you're supposed to use like facts and statistics to back it up, but that's 30 minutes of prep was an 8 or 10-minute speech. And for both impromptu, sometimes you have internet. Extemp, you almost always have access to the internet for doing your research. So do you all have any questions? Okay, cool. So are y'all leaning towards more doing debate or speech? And like, it's nothing like, if after we go over them more, if you're like, oh, I don't want to do this, I want to switch, then that's fine. Like that's fine because we'll just move you and we can move that. So it's fine. So which one are y'all leaning more towards?
I'm more into debate, although I might want to try the dramatic interpretation thing.
Okay, cool. How about you, Yash?
I'd like to do debate.
Okay, cool. So I'm going to run through the LD and I'm going to skim through the LD and PF presentations for you.
Okay.
And then y'all can figure out which one you are interested in. There's also a lot of stuff on these which is similar. Okay, so LD is individual, it's philosophical debate. One side affirms the resolution, the other side negates it, so, or AF and neg. So the resolutions, this also ends up applying to PF. It's more in LD because we're debating normally in action, like what somebody ought to do. It's normally ought, it can change. Resolutions have started to become more homogeneous lately, but yeah. So it states ought to eliminate the nuclear arsenals. It's the person who's the actor, so who's doing the action is states. So that those, and then the obligation is ought, which typically is a moral obligation. And eliminating the nuclear arsenals is like the topic here. So we're assessing the morality of states eliminating the nuclear arms. So yeah. So what are the rounds like? So the affirmative first reads 6 minutes of the constructive, which is just your pre-written arguments. That's all just basically just straight up reading. And then the neg does a cross-ex for 3 minutes. So the neg asks the affirmative questions. So these are for either clarification to expose flaws in the affirmative's case or set up the neg arguments. And then the negative reads the constructive, but they also have to respond to the affirmative. So this is a little bit different than PF because you'll see when we go over it. The negative typically reads 3 to 4 minutes of your own arguments, and then you spend the rest of it responding to the affirmative's arguments. And then the affirmative has a cross-ex, and asks the negative questions, either, again, for clarification, expose flaws in their arguments, or setting up their own arguments. And then the affirmative has called the 1AR, it's the first affirmative rebuttal, that's 4 minutes. Then there's the second negative rebuttal, which is 6 minutes. And then there's the second affirmative rebuttal, or the 2AR, which is 3 minutes. The reason it's called the second negative rebuttal is because within the first negative constructive, which is 7 minutes, you have, at least the way I like to think of it, you have the 1NC, which is when you read your own arguments, and then you have the 1NR, which is the first negative rebuttal, where you respond to the affirmative case. So I kind of combine those in my head. I think that helps, and you will see why later on. And then also, and both sides have 4 minutes of prep. You can take these whenever you want. Basically, prep is just you can prepare your speeches and stuff. So yeah. This is an example of a round. We'll skip this for now. Okay, so word cases. So these are read in your first, your first constructives. So it's a written explanation of your arguments, and ends up being split into framework and your contentions, and we'll talk more about that later. And then yeah, we just talked about how long the actual cases end up being. Okay, so you don't have to memorize anything because your first cases are written. So you have that all, you don't have to memorize it. That's one benefit of debate over speech is you don't have to really memorize stuff. And during the rounds, you take notes on what are called flows, and we'll look at those in a bit. And we have responses to common arguments are pre-written. Those are called blocks. This is a big part of prepping during the topic is we come up with blocks. So it's really easy to respond to the really common arguments. And also, yeah, if you want to make a response, that's just like you come up with it, just write it down, and then you don't have to memorize it. So what is a flow? Oh, okay, I didn't do this. Okay, flows are basically how you keep track during round. So, geez, okay. So here are some of my flows from, I was judging a tournament this weekend. So if you see here, this is the actually no, this isn't a good example because the round ended up.
If you stop screen sharing, you will become a bigger screen.
Yeah, that's a bad flow to show because later it didn't really progress. Oh, this is a good one. There, yeah. Okay, cool. Yeah, so this is a good example of you have these different columns. This is how you take notes. So for me, I flow affirmative in blue and negative in red. So here you can see each speech. I ended up running out of room, but yeah. So like here's the affirmative constructive, and then the responses to that were in the negative constructive. And then because of that, the affirmative responded these to there, and then the negative responded that. So you have the full round set out, and you can see everything, you can take notes. And then also like you could write your responses. So like if I was the negative debater, I would be flowing this during the affirmative speech. And then also if I think of these responses, I would write those down. So when I'm going through my speech, I'm reading off of here, I can see, oh, there's no reason to reject it. And I know exactly what to say. So yeah. Okay. And we'll go more into the nuances of flowing and stuff later. Okay, so what is framework? So framework is the thing that makes LD unique. And personally, I like it a lot. It's like philosophy. It helps you. So basically framework is how you view the round. Think about it like, so yeah, we'll get more in depth into it, but basically it's able to apply philosophy to change what's important in the round. So like, cause like Daniel might think imperialism is good, and I might think imperialism is bad. And the reason we have these differing opinions is because of our different moral frameworks. So moral framework, so framework is that same thing just applied in round, and it's just another level of argumentation, which is really cool. So contentions, so these are what you read, these are like why like the judge should be voting for you. Also in debate we call when you win the round the judge voting for you. So yeah, that's just like a term that's thrown around. So these are similar to like your body paragraphs in an essay. So each is kind of, they're related to your big argument, but they're just supporting it. And so they can be different ratios of cards to analytics. What cards are is just a piece of evidence. So a quote, a statistic, anything like that. Analytics are anything that you say which is not quoting somebody else. And basically it relates the resolution. So states ought to eliminate the nuclear arsenals. It relates states eliminating the nuclear arsenals to a consequence, which is your impact, and that's what your contention is basically saying and what it's explaining. I think that's it. So do y'all have any questions on LD? Okay, cool. So we'll do, yeah. Okay, so PF, so it's a partner event. So you have somebody else who's debating with you. One person's actually I'll talk about it when we get to that next slide. They'll also run 45 minutes rounds. The only difference is you're debating more on current events, and the structure is a little bit different. But here you still have an AF and a neg. It's sometimes called pro and con, but you can just say AF and neg, it's fine. Okay, this was Goomba. I don't know this, so we're going to skip it. If you guys do PF, you can ask him about it and he can explain. So here's some examples of resolutions from the 2019 to 2020 season. So you see that PF resolutions tend to be a little different, especially this one. I can annotate, yeah. Wait, no. This one, because you see that with like the LD resolutions, they talk about like typically actions and stuff, and sometimes they are just like, is something moral, is it not moral, is it just, is it not just? But you see with PF resolutions, sometimes you have just weighing the pros and the cons of something. So with offensive cyber operations, it wasn't should the US stop, should the US continue, it's do the benefits outweigh the harms. So it just adds like another element to it. So yeah. Okay. And then it's the same thing. You do have actors, obligations, and actions. Sometimes the obligation isn't, or the action isn't really there as much because you do have those balance. But, and again, these aren't really set rules for how to understand it. It just helps us break down how we need to approach the topic. So the rounds for PF, they're a lot more back and forth. So you have something called a first speaker and a second speaker. The first speaker reads the, and this goes for affirmative and negative. First speaker reads the first constructive and the first summary. Wait, can y'all see my mouse?
Can you move it a bit? Yeah, I can see it.
Okay, cool. So the first speaker reads the first constructive and the first summary. The second speaker reads the first rebuttal and the final focus. Yeah, so it's a lot more back and forth you see. And also a thing that happens in PF, which doesn't happen in LD, is during the, for some tournaments, sometimes affirmative is not first, sometimes affirmative reads the case second, but I'm going to just refer to it as if affirmative was first and negative was second. So in the second constructive doesn't have to answer the first constructive. It actually, like most of the times it shouldn't and doesn't, because what happens is the second constructive responds to the first, the second constructive is just red. These are your own points. That's like the 1 and C, the first part of it. And then crossfire, which is another cool thing about PF, is it's not cross X where you, like if I'm debating Daniel on LD, I'm just asking him questions. But crossfire is back and forth. So like if Daniel and I are doing a crossfire, I ask him a question, but then he asks me a question, and it goes back and forth like that, which is cool. And then the first rebuttal has to answer the second constructive. And so as you go there, you see it's just a little bit different in the, it's a lot more of like back and forth and organized. With LD, it's kind of, the structure ends up being more, I don't want to say free flowing because it is structured, but it ends up being more like that. And then this is called Grand Cross, the last crossfire. And what that is when anybody can ask anybody questions, which is cool. Also, summary, it used to be 2 minutes. The last year they were testing out as 3 minutes. Now it's official as 3 minutes, which is cool because it's an extra minute. Also, in PF, you do have 3 minutes of prep instead of 4 minutes. This is just because, like, when your partner's speaking, typically you should just be preparing for your own speeches. So yeah. And then with cases, PF, they tend to be a little bit smaller just because you don't have that framework, and tend to have more like parents judging, so you tend to have to read a bit slower. So yeah. Otherwise, it's pretty much the same as LD. Flows, the same thing. Here are pictures of Roomba's flows. We'll skip that, Same thing. Okay, cool. So that's all. Stop screen share.